Hi, I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend and Publish. Welcome to episode 65, Final Push Dissertation, Part 1, Taking Stock. I got the idea for this episode from several of our clients who have come to us over the past 6 weeks saying that they absolutely 100% want to graduate this semester. They want to finish in May, they want to defend their dissertation, they finally want to graduate. A few of these folks are going to extend into the summer, but virtually everyone who has come to us that's been asking for help in this area wants to be finished before August 1st. And at the time of this recording, we're recording right now this would be end of March when this episode comes out. There really isn't all that much time left. Usually for most folks, they might have 4 to 5 weeks left in the semester. If they're going to extend through the summer, they might have, a few months, but not very long. And I think it's really important to recognize what happens during a final push for a dissertation. This could really be the same types of things that happen with other kinds of final pushes. For example, many of us that are faculty members, we've been around a long time. For me, my dissertation's more than, it's around 20 years old. That was a long time ago, but the end of the semester pressure is still there to try to wrap up some academic projects that you absolutely wanted to get completed during this academic year. And so a lot of these strategies, I think, could apply whether you're writing a dissertation or not. So what we're going to do in this multi-part series on the podcast is really walk through a couple of different things. Today will be more general advice and just taking stock of your situation. And next week, we'll talk about different writing strategies that you can use to work towards that final push. What we'll start with for taking stock today, though, is really taking stock, right? So one of the things that you have to do to know if you can graduate or not is to see if it's actually possible. And usually only one person knows the answer to this, who is your dissertation advisor or your thesis chair, if you're somebody that's working on a thesis project. And this is the time to have a conversation if you haven't already. And I would argue this is actually kind of late for this conversation, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to do. And find out, is it possible for me to graduate in May, in August? You may by now already have a defense date set up and you still need to do your final push to complete that. If not, and it's been left hanging, meaning you need to complete A, B, and C before we can actually schedule your defense date, then better to know that now and find out what those things are. So if you haven't already, it's a great time to schedule a conversation with your dissertation chair, your thesis chair, just to find out what's possible, what kind of timeline is possible. So that would be the first part of taking stock. Let's say it's not possible. Let me just do a side note on that for a second. If it's not possible, I would find out when the first available time would be. Is it going to be December? So if we're having this conversation at the end of March and they say, well, you could be ready by December to defend it and graduate then. Okay, but better to find that out and know and decide how you're going to appoint your energies. Let's say it is possible for you to finish in May or at the end of the summer, but you have a lot of work to do. So the second thing that would be very important to discuss with your chair or committee at this point is to figure out what still absolutely has to be done. This is not the same as everything that you could possibly do to make this dissertation amazing or fantastic, but what absolutely has to be done so you have a chance of passing your dissertation defense and then depositing a final copy, which are, again, two different things at most institutions. So many times there are revisions to be made after a dissertation defense that would affect when you can submit your final copy. But all that aside, most projects you have to have a defense of some sort that's your final hurdle before you can submit your project and graduate. So what I would find out from the person who would know, who's probably your dissertation advisor or dissertation chair, find out what those steps are and ask for a very realistic look and say, what are the things that absolutely must be done for me to finish this project? What are things that it would be nice for me to be able to do, or that would be bonus areas that I could work on? And what you can find out from that conversation is, if you had some time, what could you do to push your project a little bit more from what it already is? For many students, by the time they get to this point in the dissertation, there's a sense of being overwhelmed with what's still left to do. a sense of disappointment of things that you didn't do, or it's too late to change. For example, maybe you didn't like your methodology, or maybe, you really just didn't like your research question, or your interview didn't go well, or whatever it is that's part of your research. At this point, what you just need is to have a workable project that can be defended. So yes, that means your project is probably flawed and probably not perfect. And as many former people writing dissertations, myself included, we might all say that at this point, it doesn't matter. 20 years later, it doesn't matter. So it's not that it doesn't matter forever and it won't matter for you on your job market. That definitely, that could be the case. You want to have a project that you can confidently argue about and that is valuable research. At the same time, the writing or that project might just be good, not great, and that's okay. And there's lots of articles out there about doing a final dissertation push and just having that moment of acceptance and realizing that, hey, this project isn't amazing, but here's the things I need to do to get it completed, and this is what I'm going to do. I'll put some of those links in the show notes for today. So that first, if we're talking through some things that you could do, one is finding out when is it possible for you to defend and get out? And then the second part of that was to find out what you need to do to make that happen. So moving forward then, if we think about, all right, it's possible and I have all this work to do, how do you decide what to work on, when to work on it, and all those sorts of decisions? So there's a couple ways that you can do this. I actually like looking at this by time and in really thinking of days divided up into 14 segments. So if we have 7 days, I try to think about morning and afternoon or morning and evening as segments. So 2 different parts during the day. And what I like to do when I'm trying to finish a project before the end of the semester is kind of think of 2 days in one, like morning is a day and afternoon is a day. So on a Monday, you might actually have like kind of 2 working periods in one day. And why I do that is because I think that we might have grown accustomed to, say, writing for a few hours or working for a few hours, and then you're finished for today. But that might not be enough time on the project of all the work you still have left in time to meet your deadline. And so essentially what you probably need to be doing is pulling some double duty. And that's something that we've been talking a lot with our clients about, is how to actually do that. And so I want to leave with this piece of advice. Thinking about your time left that you have before your project gets turned in, you could ask your advisor to prioritize the issues that are still there. So for example, I just had a client where the advisor said, you absolutely must clean up this table of your findings. This has to be cleaned up because it's not accurately representing what your findings are. So that was a very concrete piece of advice. That was the number one priority. For another client, I had the advisor was basically uncertain that the literature and the methodology were framed or connected together in some way. So they gave a couple of specific ways the client could actually fix that problem, but it wasn't a deal breaker. It was something that really needed to be worked on in some final revisions, but it wasn't the same thing as changing a table of findings. I've had another client where the dissertation chair really did not like how the findings were written up. And basically the comment was that the dissertation student did not say why these findings are important. They really did not emphasize the implications. That, I would argue, is a bigger issue. So here's the thing. When you find out what you still have to do with your dissertation advisor, ask for a priority list. Say, I'm hearing that you say I need to do these 4 things. Which is the most important of these 4 things? And why you're trying to do that is so you can see how to allocate your time. I just mentioned dividing up a 7-day week into, basically 2 work days in one. So maybe a morning slot on Monday and an afternoon slot on Monday, maybe a morning slot Tuesday and an evening slot Tuesday. So you're working at least twice a day in 2 different periods. What I would do with those is prioritize the major issue that has to happen. So if there's a deal breaker in there, that's the one you want to be working on versus worrying about something like formatting your references. It's not that references aren't important, or it's not that the dissertation formatting guidelines aren't important, but a lot of times those things can wait until after a dissertation defense, whereas other things cannot. So I would try to find out from your dissertation chair what those ideas might be. And if you're having any trouble, I also want to emphasize during this episode and several of the other ones that we are running a dissertation special right now. So if you're somebody that needs some last minute coaching, we're happy to help you. And basically the deal is if you want to work with us, if you purchase 4 coaching hours, you can get a 5th one for free. So at the time that we're recording this in late March of 2022, this might be a deal that you're looking for to get over that final hump. One of the things that we do during those sessions is really focus on the matters I just talked about. What's your priority list? What are the things that absolutely have to be done? And we can work out even a time plan for you to get those things completed. We can be your accountability partners to make sure you do them. We can also be your sounding board to say, okay, your advisor asked for this. This is what you did. Here's some feedback we have on how you might do that a little bit better. And of course, the emphasis would always be on clear and consistent writing. So if you want to talk more about this, you can email me at Christine, Christine, at defendandpublish.com, and we'd be happy to help you out. Hopefully this advice helps, and check out the show notes so that way you can see some other suggestions for just kind of taking stock of your situation before graduation. And happy writing this week.